What's going on, everybody? It's that time again. The AllSooners Podcast, post-game edition, episode 143. From Lincoln, Nebraska, Josh Callaway, John Hoover, Ryan Chapman. We have commandeered the press box at Memorial Stadium, very similar to what we do at Memorial Stadium in Norman, Oklahoma. Got a nice, beautiful backdrop here that they set up just for us. Not really, but I like to think that. We're right over here. We had breakfast pizza and then actual pizza just a little bit over that way. So you're seeing a scene of history
The
here.
kitchen's right there.
The kitchen is right there. If you hear weird noises, it's because the ice machine is just for some reason will just like drop a pound of ice. Not even a pound, like 10 pounds of ice. Just all of a sudden. So if you hear that, that's what that was.
Well, it's not for any reason. It's the ghost of Nebraska football past showing
Yeah.
up because they shouldn't play like Nebraska out there on the field.
Right. So
Tom Osborne is not dead. He might wish he was after today.
glad to be here. We made the trip up north to Lincoln. I drove through the night. Ryan got here late. Who's been here? He's just been chilling. He's staying tonight, too. He just loves Lincoln. He loves Nebraska so much.
That'd
He
be
just can't get
18
enough.
days in Nebraska for me this year.
Yeah, that's 18 more than most people should ever have to do. But it's been good. It's been a good time in Nebraska. We're here at the stadium. And we witnessed a bloodbath today. If you're watching, you know by now. Oklahoma crushes Nebraska today, 49-14. It was worse than that because, frankly, Oklahoma called off the Dogs with like a quarter and a half to go still in this game. Otherwise, it could have been a lot worse.
49 points in a row.
49 unanswered.
Effortlessly, too. A lot of those were just easy.
The important note, my undefeated season prediction lives for another week. The Sooners absolutely dominate. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of the game. Obviously, it's what the post-game show is for. But let's just start off with, guys, they destroyed them. And this game was not even remotely close.
I was shocked. Honestly, I was just like, Nebraska came down and scored their first touchdown. You know, it was easy. They made it look easy against the Oklahoma defense. They got a punt on the first Oklahoma possession. After that, the game was over. Nebraska was up 7-0, and Dylan Gabriel took it 61 yards for a touchdown. The game was over. It was 7-7. It was 7-7, and Nebraska was dead. I've never seen anything like it. And those guys just laid down. It was unbelievable. Offensively, defensively, no fight whatsoever. I said on the post-game wrap that I was in the press box for 30-3 and back in 2004 and 68-28 back in 2008. Those were some bad Nebraska teams. We've seen some really bad Nebraska teams. I don't think we've seen anything quite like this.
Yeah, I think that as awful as Nebraska was, though, this Brent Venables Oklahoma team deserves a ton of credit because how many times did we see this during the Lincoln Riley era, right? That even when Oklahoma gets up big on somebody, you have loss of focus. You have even when it's not a Tulane type finish, right? It's still comfortable.
Yeah.
They throw the twos in and things go bad. Like as far as the twos being in the game, the only bad thing that happened is Davis Bevel screwed up a handoff exchange, right? I mean, even in the second half, that Brent Venables talked about it in his post game, right? That he wanted that team to set the tone, and he kind of insinuated it was the make them quit, step on their neck type thing, right? In the second half, first play, a true freshman, Jaron Kennett comes out and forces a fumble. Then you had all second half plays, the Key Lawrence interception into the end zone to make sure that they kept points off the board. And then Brent Venables he wasn't bemoaning, but he was also talking about, and oh, by the way, we had a third down sack on the final drive of the game that if that had hit, then Oklahoma would have maybe had a chance to keep that last touchdown off the board.
Yeah.
So that's a very different vibe from what we've seen in the past as far as finishing off a game. And Josh, I told you I wanted you to talk about this because we should really start at the beginning. It was a very different vibe from the second the Sooners took the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can see it in the highlight video. I might try. I have like 2 solid minutes of it that I need to make use of. I only put about 30 seconds in the highlight video, but when they're going to take the field and they play the hype video for Nebraska, which was like half an OU hype video, that's a separate conversation for later in the show maybe. The place is going insane. It's everything we think it's going to be. It's a madhouse in there. The Nebraska fans are totally into it. They're ready to go. Every time they saw Mickey Joseph on the board, they go bananas. And Brent Venables leads his team out. And he didn't do this at home. In the home games, he was right around the middle. They would run out, and he was just kind of somewhere just amongst the team, basically. Not this time. They come out. He's right at the front. Dylan Gabriel's right next to him. And they come out leading the team, and there's a look in his eye that's just, I mean, it's so cliche, and it sounds ridiculous, I know it, but it felt like I'm looking at them saying that team is ready to go. Like the way he had this expression on his face and the way he turned and talked to his guys, hitting him on the pads, and Justin Harrington kind of just gave him a little pat on like the hip, kind of just like one of these like, we're ready to go right now. They looked dialed in. I know the game didn't go up to a good start. We'll talk about that in a second, but they had a different vibe. They came in ready to make a statement today, and they did that.
This game, for me, was won during the winter, last spring, during the summer, training camp. The game was won. Brent Venables said something in the post-game press conference that really caught my attention. He said the guys are hungry to learn. He said when you talk to them, they're on the edge of their seat, leaning forward, getting into what you're saying. So he's talking to them and he's looking out into the audience, 100 guys, and they're on the edge of their seat. And the coach thought enough of that to mention it in his post-game press conference. What that means is, listen, they're Schmitty built. You saw the fitness factor out there today where one team wilted, emotionally, spiritually, sure, but I think physically as well. And they're Venables built too. They're built by Brent Venables. This team has a different mindset, as Ryan mentioned. In the past, you saw Lincoln Riley's teams fade in the second half, fade in the fourth quarter, take their foot off the neck, so to speak. This team hasn't done that yet. They've put the pedal to the metal late in games. While their starters were out there, at least, is what I'm getting at. And that's huge. That's so big. That's you talk about a change in culture. That's what we're looking at now, and is a new culture, a new way of thinking about putting people away.
I mean, just think about what they've done in the second halves of these games to further that point. I mean, also we talked about last week, Kent State game, 26-0 after the half, right? If I'm doing math correctly, UTEP, what'd they get? They didn't score at all after the half, right? They got a field goal after the half.
Yeah,
17-3. Nebraska gets just a garbage time touchdown today. After the half, it has been insane domination from Oklahoma. I mean, that's a testament to good coaching, obviously.
Well, in this team today, this is going to get lost in the shuffle. You mentioned it. Dylan Gabriel was pulled with 7.5 minutes left in the third quarter. 7.5 minutes in the third quarter.
Game. Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel was pulled, and Oklahoma dictated that. Who was leading the next Nebraska drive? Chuba Purdy, Nebraska's backup quarterback. This is a program with nothing but pride on the line, hosting a historic rival in what many consider a great week because they're finally out from under the shadow of Scott Frost. And Oklahoma made them wave the white flag. This is the most points that an Oklahoma team has ever scored in this stadium. Like that is history. That's a big bout of history. And Oklahoma made Nebraska eat $7.5 million today. That's what happened. Nebraska, there was no point in Scott Frost not being on the sideline with the effort that team put in. I think that has a ton to do with how Oklahoma played.
Yeah, you might as well have just saved the $7 million and kept Scott Frost here because it didn't make a lick of difference.
Nope.
If anything, it got worse. Because that
was shocking to me.
Like we talked about a lot, Scott Frost, the butt of many jokes, and deservedly so. But Nebraska did lose a ton of close games under him. This game was not close in any way.
Scott Frost now saying, I wasn't so bad, was I? 49-14, and it was worse than that.
Way worse. It could have been. Oklahoma could have got to 70 today easily if they kept the foot on the gas. They had 49. I mean, it was the middle of the third. I mean, they were pouring it on. There was nothing that Nebraska could do to slow them down, and they couldn't move the ball at all. Casey Thompson got absolutely just battered in this game. We'll talk about that more in just a minute. Let's talk about the offense first.
Real quick, I'm not good at math, but I added it up while you were talking. 57-10, I think, is the second half scoring right now.
I mean, that's going to put you in good shape.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to put you in good shape. They've come out of the locker room, and UTEP, they were already in control, but it wasn't totally over, and they put it away. Kent State, it was a close game, and they dominated and put it away. And then today, it was bad, and it got just way worse. They've really been very good coming out of the locker room, which wasn't Lincoln Riley
that wasn't
awful in the third quarter.
Well, we ran the story last year after the Tulane game in the – I forget how far back I pulled the data, so apologies. But basically, it was on average – Oklahoma was winning second halves, sure, but they were winning second halves by an average of a touchdown, which means that on average, if you're winning second halves by 7 points – because it's an average, that means you're losing a bunch of those second halves, right? This has been total, utter, complete domination, and it's domination after 2 terrible drives to start the football game.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with the offensive side first. how we typically start these post-game shows. First drive does nothing. Doesn't really go anywhere. They give up the touchdown. We'll talk about that in a minute. They're down 7-0. And now
By the way, Wanya Morris did not start.
He got in. He played.
Third drive.
Yeah. They come back out down 7-0. They quickly get into a 3rd and long. It's not looking great, for another per drive. Then Dylan Gabriel goes 61 to the house.
He goes around the side where Wanya Morris was blocking. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He comes on the field and they score on that drive.
It's a great bit of Ryan vindication in the postgame, by the way, as well. Hoove and I had, I don't know if it was a spirited discussion, but we were trying to determine if that was a draw or a busted play.
Yeah.
And team draw won the day.
This fly is just trying to get in your soda. What soda you got?
Pepsi.
That's what you get.
The choice of a new generation.
What was I talking about? Dylan Gabriel. So he has 61 yards to the house. A, that's the longest run of his career, which is hilarious. And then B, ain't nobody knew he had that in him. Nobody. We're kidding ourselves. Marvin Mims joked about it in postgame. He was like, "Yeah, we didn't know he could do that."
Farouk said the same thing. I didn't know he could run like that.
He took off down the sideline. I mean,
to his credit, he said, "I wear a blue jersey every day in practice." Of course, they don't know.
if you asked me before the season, if we did like prop bets, longest run of the season for Dylan Gabriel, how low would you have gone for like taking the under? Like 29 and 30 and a half, 29 and a half? Would you have taken the under on that?
About 30, yeah.
61. He housed it, and it was great. He went right up the sideline, made a nice little move, and it totally changed the game from there. Offense, 49 unanswered. Like I said, Nebraska had no answer. We talked about it in the lead up to this game. Nebraska's defense is really bad. Georgia Southern came in here and put a bunch of points and yards on them last week. But I mean, what more can you do than scoring literally every drive for like 2 full quarters plus, which is what Oklahoma did in this game.
Yeah, and the other thing about that too was there were a lot of questions that we asked this week of Dylan Gabriel, where Dylan Gabriel, if you watch the video on AllSooners.com, you can see that Dylan Gabriel kind of limped into saying like, I mean, yeah, I've played in a rivalry game before, and I don't want to put words in Dylan's mouth, but this is the vibe that came off. Dylan's always been very respectful to UCF. He has friends at UCF still. He talks about still talking with those guys. But you could tell there was an understanding from Dylan Gabriel that playing in UCF versus South Florida is going to be nothing like playing OU Texas, Bedlam, or OU Nebraska. And so there was a question. These are the most road fans Dylan Gabriel's ever played in front of. How is that going to look? On the very first drive of the game, he took a sack, which I would bet all the money I've got, which is not a lot, that Jeff Lebby on Monday will come in and say that Dylan Gabriel held the ball too long. It's not on the offensive line because he had a moment where he could have probably thrown it away. All that stuff, how does he respond? He himself has that huge 61-yard run. And then from there, did he miss a couple of throws? Mm-hmm. Sure. But for the most part, he was money as far as delivering it when it counted. And, again, didn't even come close to turning the ball over. Really the only close play to the turnover is that interception he threw in week 1 that was called back for the pass interference on Farouk. And he even had a moment where there was a bad snap that, the play ended up busted, but he was able to corral that. If Dylan Gabriel is going to not turn the ball over at this pace and the defense is going to play like that, Oklahoma's going to win a bunch of football games, and they're going to be in Arlington.
I'll just recap the scoring drives for you guys. Listen to this. This is the drives. Punt, then the touchdown, then a punt. Then they went touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. End of the half, missed field goal. Venables wasn't thrilled about that. Then they open the second half, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Then they get ready to score another touchdown. They're in the red zone, and they fumble that handoff. The backups all fumble the handoff. Then they drive down again and go for it on 4th down, and they're almost in the red zone again. They go for it on 4th down. That could have. Josh is 100% right. Could have been 70. They could have named their score today, and with a little bit better execution, a field goal, not a fumble down in the red zone by the backups. I think. What are we looking at there? 59? That's 59 right there.
Well, they would have got to 60 if they had just left Gabriel in the game for the third quarter. Just the third quarter, they would have got to 60.
Yeah, he was on fire.
And, a big part of that, obviously we're talking about Gabriel and they're throwing the ball, and we're going to talk about the receiving core in a minute. Maybe it got a couple of guys going that they need to get going. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But the run game, which we talked about so much, they couldn't run the ball against Kent State. It was alarming. We were sitting here saying, guys, this is bad. To not be able to run. We're sitting in almost exactly a week ago. I guess not. We're still like 6 hours from almost exactly a week ago from that podcast at the stadium in Norman. But after that Kent State game, saying they couldn't run the ball, like that's not good. And they came in tonight. Eric Gray was fantastic. He goes 11 carries for $113 and a couple of scores. Javonte Barnes got what he wanted. Marcus Major not as impressive. He had a couple of nice runs. Didn't dominate the way he had the first couple of games, but had some nice moments. Gabriel the big run. But they ran the ball today, and Eric Gray looked great. I think that's got to be one. If you're narrowing it down to any one thing as maybe the most encouraging, at least for me, it's the fact they ran the ball, largely at will. Is really, really good to see if you're Oklahoma.
We knew Nebraska was really bad defensively. We knew they were bad stopping the run, and we knew that Oklahoma's shortcoming has been running the football so far. They popped a couple of long ones to kind of stretch their yards per carry out for the team. But take those 2 runs away, go after 2 games, they're averaging 4.2 yards per carry. That's not great. That's not hardly good. Today, they did it effortlessly. Averaged 6 yards a carry, 312 yards rushing. Everybody got a little taste. So that was huge. And it was big that your quarterback does something, contributes something. Dylan Gabriel's not a 100-yard quarterback. He's not a dual-threat quarterback. The fact that he was able to do that really helps your statistics. Again, helps skew your yards per carry. That's helpful. I don't think you can count on that every day. Not when what do we call them, the white shirts? They're not red shirts. They don't deserve black shirts. The Nebraska shirts.
Corn shirts.
The corn shirts.
Yes.
That was pathetic.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what they do next week against K-State, right? Because there were still a few moments early in the first quarter. The Gabriel run was a great play call, great execution by everyone involved, especially Dylan Gabriel. Outside of that, you could see a little bit early on the first 4 drives, including that touchdown run. Levy was kind of hesitant. A lot of the runs he called were, he had a couple of hit Stoops on a jet sweep, hit Mims on a jet sweep, like get those guys to the boundary. But what did he tell us, right? I asked the question about second half adjustments on Monday, and he said he was too stubborn with the run game. He needed to throw the ball more. What did Oklahoma do? They immediately threw the ball more, really through that late part of the first quarter. Then by that time, it had loosened up everything, and the run game was just dominant from then on out. I think that had a lot to do with it. I think Wanya Morris's return had a lot to do with it. That group just looked more confident. And so I think those are all really encouraging signs going into what will be a big test next week. Is K-State dropped the game to Tulane, yes, but the D-line's still legit. So I think that this is a group kind of gaining some confidence that we'll find out a ton about. Will they be able to assert their will, run first, or do they need to be kind of a pass to open up the run game, which isn't a negative? It's plenty fine and a very viable way to win college football games in 2022.
I want to clarify something I screwed up as well. Wanya Morris came in the 3rd drive. That was a punt. That was a punt drive. So I misspoke, misremembered. Dylan Gabriel scored his touchdown run on the 2nd drive of the game, not the 3rd. So, yeah, there you go. So shout out Tyler Guyton.
Yeah, it can be interesting to see how that's balanced, moving forward. That whole Wanye, Guyton, musical chairs is certainly.
I thought the line was more physical today, didn't you?
Oh yeah, they ran down their throats, and Gabriel had time to throw. I mean, there was nothing.
Yeah, you saw them pushing guys off the line of scrimmage. That's something that we haven't seen. We haven't seen a lot of movement up front. The first 2 games today, there was a lot of movement. They were pushing guys out of there. So a lot of those runs were huge holes that Eric Gray would bust through, and then there's no linebacker. Like literally, where is the linebacker? What is the linebacker doing? Are they catching them on blitzes? A couple of times maybe, but just in general, Nebraska was not in the right place at the right time. I got the feeling that Oklahoma was calling the right play for the right Nebraska defense.
How important do you think it was to get, maybe, seemingly, possibly, Jalil Farouk and Theo Weiss going in this game a little bit? I mean, Farouk had the nice touchdown. Weiss had a really nice touchdown. Just 3 catches for Farouk and 2 for Weiss, but they both scored. They both made big plays in the game. And we talked about it, last week and leading up to this week of kind of like, Marvin Mims is he has shown I can get open and get the ball whenever I want. We know that about Marvin Mims at this point. He was good again today. But getting Farouk and Weiss especially, like those are your next 2. Stoops is there as well, but Farouk and Weiss are your big play guys. You're looking at to go over the top and not be all on Mims. They both get in there today. How important was that for Oklahoma?
Dylan Gabriel had begun to lock in a little bit on Marvin Mims the first 2 games. I thought he had kind of, left-handed quarterback. He's looking to his left. He's firing the ball to Marvin Mims. Today he got the ball out to his right. and got the ball out to Theo Weiss. Really nice throw to Theo, by the way. Just kind of one of those deals where it's either going to be caught by a great catch by Theo or not at all. And then same with Farouk. Farouk,
It's a really good throw to Farouk.
he said, as a receiver, yes, it's frustrating and you get a little frustrated when you're not catching the ball, but as long as we're making plays, as long as my teammates are making plays and we're winning games, I'm fine. But, yeah, he was excited to finally get the football coming his way a little bit.
Yeah, I thought Gabriel saw the field a lot better today. He did miss a couple of throws. Farouk should have had 2 touchdowns. He was open. Gabriel just left it a little bit farther to the middle of the field as opposed to right up the hash. But I think that he's a guy that I'm going to ask him about it this week, and we're not ever going to get a real answer out of him, I would bet, because he's cool, calm, collected, says the right thing, all that stuff, which is fine. But I think that he's settling in to being the starting quarterback at the University of Oklahoma. You know what I mean? Like, no matter how much you say it doesn't matter, things like that, it's a huge adjustment. It is. It's a lot of pressure, and especially when you have, like, new system, you're trying to teach all your teammates, all that stuff, so you're trying to be perfect for them on top of dealing with that just bigger stage. And I think that today, kind of being on the road, I think it was one of those things that everyone was against this team. And I almost think that maybe helped the offense settle in and just be like, oh, no, we're good. We're fine. Let's just run the system. All we've got is each other, and they were dynamite. So I'm curious to see if Gabriel will admit to, hey, I'm not overwhelmed at any point, but it does take a little bit to settle into that role because I thought he looked very relaxed outside of the first 3 drives today.
Tight ends caught 4 passes today. That was cool, including one from Caden Helms, Bellevue, Nebraska.
Of course, the Nebraska kid get one.
Right down the road. He caught a pass in the second half.
From Davis Bevel. Bevel actually got to throw a little bit.
Bevel was 2 for 2, I think. Yeah, for 14 yards.
One of them was like a little handoff, basically.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I mean, it was a pass.
The bad
it goes in the books as a
yeah.
pass. I'm not taking anything away from Bevel. But, I still want to see him air it out. He's a big, he's got a cannon.
I want to see him sling it.
Yeah. Let the man air it out. And the
tight ends got involved, though. That was cool. And then one threw a touchdown pass. We talked about that. Did we talk about that?
We talked about it in the wrap.
Okay, we haven't talked about Braden Willis yet. Braden Willis is driving his car at Campus Corner, gets T-boned, I think he said on Wednesday, may have been Tuesday. He comes out today. He was perfectly fine. He wasn't injured. He said the other driver was fine as well. Nobody was hurt. But, that kind of jacks with you a little bit. He said he didn't have a car the back half of the week. He's bumming a ride from everybody. He comes out here. What does he do? Puts his receiving gloves on and throws a touchdown pass.
Pretty great. And
on a double
Ryan
pass. Pretty great.
Had a great story on AllSooners about it and kind of the background of that play, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, not going to give it all away, but Braden Willis almost lost his job as the trick play quarterback. Obviously, there's no Nick Basquin, no CeeDee Lamb, so they had to have a new emergency quarterback for that play. It sounded like Jeff Levy was having fun with that after the game. I was there for that. Braden Willis was having fun with it after the game. But it was a cool moment, and it was just one of those plays where you kind of mentioned it on the post-game wrap that's up on AllSooners, Josh, but that was the moment that this game went from, okay, Oklahoma's in control, they steadied the ship, to Oklahoma is going to name what the final score is, and Nebraska's going to like it because there's not a dang thing that the Huskers are doing about it.
Yeah, that's when it moved to just, we're just going to do whatever we want at this point. And that ties in nicely to earlier talking about Marcus Major, where he didn't run the ball as well today, at least yardage-wise, as he did in the first couple games. He still got out there and caught the touchdown right there. So, I mean, he still had a nice day.
And he had 12 carries. He had more carries than Eric
They
Green
fed
did.
him. Yeah, they fed him today. So
it's looking kind of balanced, that running game. It's almost by committee, like we said in the preseason.
Yeah.
Running back by committee.
That running back's, you got guys. Javonte Barnes looked really good today as well. He continues to kind of just look almost better and better each week in a way.
It felt like through the first 2 weeks, and I was talking about a friend with this, he kind of pointed out that he seemed like a guy that's a physical running back, and as a freshman, in the first 2 weeks, he was trying to run over people. Today, it looked like he just played running back. It didn't look like he was a heat-seeking missile trying to embarrass Nebraska defenders. It's like, hey, just get out in the open field, and those embarrassments will come. And so I thought that Barnes looked a lot better. Another guy that, different than the Gabriel conversation, but just settling into his role. And now Oklahoma's got 3 guys that you feel you can feed.
One last thought on the offense as we shift over. We'll talk about the defensive side of it, who also played a great game today, obviously. I think we can put to rest any hope of seeing Mr. General Booty in a game this year. Because if it didn't happen today, that's as bad as a whipping as you're going to have probably the rest of the season today. And they put Davis Bevell in with 7 minutes in the third, and they still didn't get to Booty. So
but
I think that dream can die.
Partly, too, Bevell needs work, number one. Number two, they only brought 3 quarterbacks. They didn't have their backup and their backup and their backup. They didn't have Micah Bowens. They didn't have Ralph Rucker.
Like they do at home.
Right,
Yeah.
they didn't have Nick Evers. So they only had the 3 guys. So I guess it's not like pitcher, you can bring them back into the game. It's not like when you pull them out, oh, crap,
That would be
we're out of
something.
pitchers. No.
Yeah. That would add a wrinkle.
But I guess Braden Willis could do it.
Clearly.
That's true. That's true. Maybe Braden
Obviously.
Willis is the low-key third string. Joe Mixon threw one too, didn't he?
Yep.
One time. Yeah, so the long lineage of skill players throwing touchdowns for Oklahoma. Braden Willis gets added to that list. Let's move over to the defensive side. I mean, this defense is awesome. That's not the most high intensity breaking down X's and O's analysis you're going to get,
Right.
but they're fun to watch. They hit, they tackle, they play with an edge. That first drive, I don't know if you can just write it off to just first drive of a game, plays are scripted,
Yep.
kind of a thing,
That's exactly
or
what I was thinking.
emotion of that kind of because the crowd was on fire and stuff like that. But they went right down the field in 2 minutes. Did Casey Thompson and the Huskers? After that, I mean, they couldn't move the ball at all. It was total domination. This defense is legit. Only allowed. I mean, you give up that touchdown in garbage time, which makes it look a tiny bit better for Nebraska. If you're talking about total, what would that be? That's 30 points total in 3 games, 10 points a game. That's with a garbage time touchdown here today. That defense is getting it done.
I'm going to do what Brent Venables did in the post-game press conference. They scored a touchdown on their opening drive. Punt, 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 downs, punt, end of the first half. Fumble, punt, punt, downs, interception in the end zone. And then they scored that garbage time touchdown at the end. That is a hellacious stretch of defense by any stretch, by any imagination of any team that's ever played football. If you have that many possessions and you hold them to that many stops in 2022, you generate that many stops on defense. That's damn impressive.
Well, and Brent Venables said this after the game. Jonah Laulu said this after the game. Nebraska picked up about roughly 70 yards on that first drive of the game.
77.
They picked up about roughly 70 yards the rest of the first half. That is dialing it in. OU threw a different look out there, right? They went with that 3-man front. Jonah Laulu also, I asked him about, they also blitzed the hell out of Nebraska, which is what we've all been waiting for. We kind of talked about that during the week, right? Is this the week that we finally get to see the floodgates open? And Jonah Laulu kind of said, hey, we came out in this 3-man front, and what they've been told is that a lot of people think, we can run against the 3-man front, and they were calling a ton of run blitzes. I think they almost baited Nebraska into try to run against this front, and then Desean White played like he had a man on fire. Laulu had a big sack. Redmond had a big sack out of that front. Ethan Downs had an awesome game stuffing the run.
Yeah.
And from that point on, Nebraska then became one-dimensional. And a Brent Venables defense, when Desean White is blitzing like he was, as good as he was out of the cheetah spot, when Jaron Canick comes in and says, hey, Desean White, you get a targeting call, no worries. My first snap, I'm going to get a hat on Casey Thompson as well. You make yourself one-dimensional like that and just let Brent basically let the dogs off the chain. Like, you're not going to succeed, especially not when you've got that offensive line and kind of that lack of skill position players that Casey Thompson had around him.
Desean White, where did that come from?
Yeah,
I was going to
He
say,
was unbelievable.
who, like you referenced in the post game wrap, this was the game of the cheetah because
It was unbelievable.
Desean White was everywhere. It was too bad he got ejected
Yeah.
in this game in the
No,
first
he
half
got
for
himself
targeting
ejected.
on Casey Thompson. It was a good call.
Yeah.
He lowered the helmet. Can't do that. Fortunately for him in Oklahoma, it happened right at the end of the first half, so he'll be back, full go next week. We joked about it in the wrap. Brent Venables didn't know that. He got to post game and thought Desean White. He mentioned Desean White's out for the first half
These
next week.
first-year head coaches, man.
He was
You
like,
gotta
Desean
teach 'em
White's
as you
out for the
go.
first half next week. That's a bummer, and everybody kind of looks around like, no, he's not.
and Mike Houck was like,
Mike Houck
no,
breaks in
no.
and says, no, he'll be back next week. And Brent Venables goes, all right, cool. I was thinking he's going to be out. So, but he was having a really good game before that. Jaron Canick comes in, leads the team in tackles by a wide margin.
10
He has
tackles
10.
for a freshman.
Next closest was 6. And then not to be overlooked, Justin Harrington got in there with 5 tackles. So it was the game of the cheetah. Those guys were everywhere.
Cheetah made 21 tackles. They're doing something to feature those guys, and I'm going to ask Ted Roof on Monday what exactly they're allowing. And he's probably going to poo-poo the question. He doesn't want to reveal any secrets, but clearly they're doing something to feature those guys and get them in isolation blocks where they can defeat their man and make a play on the ball, or get in space and make a play on the ball.
Well, I think those guys are doing a really good job, too. Frankly, this is just something we didn't get to see the last 3 years, right? It's a difference in system. This was not a part of Alex Grinch's system because he created pre-snap movement by shifting the line, right? Like the defensive line would shift, and they're trying to time that shift right before the snap so that everyone fouls up their lanes, right? Offensive line. This is more of a traditional, what you see on Sundays, right? As far as linebackers step up to the line of scrimmage and show like they're going to blitz and then drop off. Guys drop off and then come on this delayed blitz, screaming through the B gap. Usually, it's just different, and it was more conventional, more what you're accustomed to see. And I just thought it was so impressive that, okay, so Desean White, he's a veteran, right? So being able to do all kind of that pre-snap stuff and still hit home, that comes naturally to him. Jaron Kanak rolling out there, we've only seen him at inside linebacker since the spring game where he played cheetah. To come back out, get thrown right back into the cheetah spot, and he also was on point with those timings, things like that. That, to me, was almost the most impressive thing, and that includes a guy that didn't really flip the game, but set the tone for the second half and said, this game is over, by forcing a fumble on the very first play of the second half.
Yeah, then they went and cashed in on the other side. That really, it was like a 1%, and they just slammed the door shut big time. That was a great way to start the second half. Eric Gray talked about that in post-game. Brent Venables harps on the first drive of the second half as being where a lot of games are won and lost. Come out, force a turnover right away and go score. That's pretty good way to start the second half. And it's pretty fun. Jaron Kanak, who we heard so much about in the offseason, guy who's committed to Clemson and, that whole thing, wanting to come to Oklahoma. Brent Venables telling him, no, you should stick with your commitment to Clemson. Eventually comes to Oklahoma anyway. Gets the Baker Mayfield tweet, if you guys remember that. And we hear how much of a freak he is and all this stuff. And now we're actually seeing it 3 games into his career. He's leading the team in tackles. It's cool to see a guy kind of live up to the hype a little bit. It's really early. Brent Venables joked about that, saying he doesn't even know what he's doing right now. He has no idea how to play linebacker right now. It's basically the equivalent of just saying, wait until this guy actually gets good, essentially. Look what he's doing right now, and he's not good. It's basically what Brent Venables said. He's got this much natural ability. The guy's going to be a beast. He already is, but he's going to be a monster before it's all said and done.
Him and Stutzman roaming the linebacker core together. Whoa. Yeah, that's a hell of a combo.
With the other Kobe McKenzie and Kip Lewis, and it's a crew. Lewis Carter, who murdered that punter, is coming in a couple of years. Remember? I look for any reason to shoehorn that in.
That's so bad.
Well, and speaking of punters, this game was bad. When I looked down at the box score before we started recording this, it was like, holy bleep, guys! Nebraska used 2 punters. They beat them so bad. They're like, well, let's throw the other punter out there and see if he can't.
Maybe this guy can make a difference. And he hit one 51 yards, so he did a great job.
The best punter name of all time, Timmy Bleak Road. Shout out. Had one punt, 51 yards. See? Not a bad punt for Timmy.
Way better than your guy Brian Buschini, who only averaged 40.8 yards and was letting Marvin Mims return him right, left, and center.
Marvin Mims is going to return a punt for a touchdown for the season. He's gotten close a couple times already. I also feel like Oklahoma is bound to block one. Last year, I really, especially toward the end of the year, hand up, got pretty lazy about shooting punts because they just never even really pressured and they fair caught them all the time. I shoot every punt now because I'm expecting a block or Mims to run one back. That's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. He's already gotten close. He has more yards. I wish I could create the stat. I think it was Mike Houck tweeted the stat. I think. Marvin Mims has more punt return yards than Oklahoma had last year. We're 3 games in. 3 games. That's something that Oklahoma was just giving away last year. Giving away. Nobody's making them do that. They just gave it away last year. It's insane. So,
Venables said that they played 70-plus guys today. You wouldn't think that going to Lincoln, Nebraska would be the game that you can empty the bench.
How is it even mathematically possible to get that many? Like, I'm doing the math in my head. It's like, there's only 11 at a time. How did you get 70 in there?
You get your 3 deep in on both sides of the football, and you get your 2 deep in on special teams.
27 guys made a tackle today for the defense. I don't know what the count was on offense, but the offensive line was – they were doing wholesale changes. The O-line was, the receivers, a bunch of freshmen out there. Nick Anderson came to the game, went through warm-ups, did not suit up, though. Who else Who else in the pregame that we
Oh,
were
R.
talking
Mason
about?
Thomas
R.
didn't play
Mason
today.
Thomas didn't play. That's right. Yeah, he did not warm up, but he came out in his jersey and street clothes. So.
And real quick, too, I don't want this to get lost in the fact that this is one of the worst Nebraska teams I've ever laid my eyes on. Defense, awful, right, for the Huskers. We talked about it all week. They're the 124th total defense. Entering this week, did absolutely nothing to help their cause. The offense was moving the football. And I know they haven't played anybody, but they were still moving the football, right?
Oh, yeah.
Scott Frost had taken his hands off the offense. Mark Whipple, they had turned the reins over.
Almost 500 yards a game.
Yeah, and Oklahoma shut them down outside of one drive with the starters, when both sets of starters were playing. We've been waiting. Kind of the defense sure looks better. The fundamentals are better. They've been playing very basic the first 2 weeks. If this is the first taste of what this defense is going to look like when all bets are off and the playbook's open, I'm not saying they're the 85 Bears or anything like that.
Yeah.
But this defense has taken a massive step forward, which is surprising to me because when Brent Venables was hired, went in and did the digging, Clemson was in the 70s, 80s-ish in total defense the year before Brent Venables was hired. Year one, it was marginal. They jumped about 10 spots. Year two, they jumped into the top 25, and then they never left the top 10 after that. This is a much larger jump forward through 3 games than Brent Venables' year one at Clemson, and that has to be incredibly exciting if you're an Oklahoma fan with the young talent that's contributing right now, plus what they're doing on their recruiting chart right now.
And things are getting ready to get tougher.
Yeah.
Conference plays
Yeah.
right around the corner. Kansas is 3-0. Kansas, not Kansas State, Kansas.
The Jayhawks.
The Jayhawks are 3-0.
Yeah.
The tweet of the night, I'm going to read it right here, you guys. This is from our friend Harold Kuntz, who works in Kansas City now. Turner Gill,
Former total.
Charlie Weiss, Clint Bowen, David Beatty, and Les Miles combined for 2 road wins. Lance Leipold this season has 3.
Wow,
year 2.
not this season.
Oh, he has 3 in his career.
That,
He has 3 in his career.
Tennessee Tech was at home, but if you
Right.
throw the
2
Texas game
seasons.
in from last year, a big road win.
Lance Leipold, who,
Stunning.
these people around here should be paying attention to
Well,
what Lance Leipold's
Yep.
doing.
Well, they need. That's if they get their eyes off Urban Meyer. There
There was a
higher
lot of
Urban Meyer
He
shirts
was here
in the
right
crowd.
for Big Noon kickoff, and fans were. I was down there. They were shouting at him, "Urban, come save us!" Stuff like that.
The We Want
I heard
Urban
it.
chants on Big Noon kickoff.
I heard it. And yeah, we talked about it all week. This Nebraska team is really bad. They just fired their coach 3 weeks into the season. They're bad. That's no secret. But to be fair to Oklahoma, while they are bad, it's an 11-point spread. Okay, it wasn't like they were favored by 30. It's not like an FCS team. And there was a lot of people that were kicking around Nebraska making this thing interesting with the interim head coach.
Who said at the beginning of the season that Nebraska was going to win? Was it,
Yeah.
was it somebody that we know?
Exactly. So while we acknowledge Nebraska stinks, there was a lot of people who were kicking around Nebraska, making this interesting, winning this game. I picked Oklahoma to cover the spread, but I had 41-20. I thought Nebraska would hang. They did.
Did not pick Oklahoma to cover the spread. I picked 45-35.
Yeah, they
So
didn't.
great performance by this defense.
They didn't hang at all. So Oklahoma smokes them, and can't really ask for much more than what you got today for the Sooners. Complete domination. Player of the game. We'll do that as we start to kind of slowly wrap us up here. Who do we got? You have a lot of options.
I'm inclined to say Jaron Kanik because he led the team with 10 tackles, but the best player on defense today was before he got ejected was Desean White. That's my player of the game.
It was really too bad he got ejected.
6
'Cause he was
tackles.
putting together a really good game.
1 tackle for loss. He broke up a pass when he was in such good position to read the play that the ball hit him in the back of the head. The guy was everywhere. He was knocking Casey Thompson all over the field. So, yeah, that's my player of the game.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just for sake of good podcasting, I'll pick an offensive player. Give me Dylan Gabriel. Again, it can't be understated. This is a guy that, no shot at UCF. He's never played in a road atmosphere like a Memorial Stadium that was rocking, especially after that touchdown drive from Nebraska. To respond in the way that he did, immediately snapping off that 61-yard touchdown run, incredibly impressive to me. And it shows you that this is a guy that he's not as talented as Caleb Williams, I'm sorry, but he's shown he's more than capable of running this offense at a high level, a high enough level probably to, if they continue to play like this, like he can win you a Big 12 championship. He can maybe sneak you into some talks that maybe Sooner fans weren't talking about starting into this game, which is being the sacrificial lamb to get pummeled by Georgia.
Only 230 yards passing and 2 touchdowns for Dylan Gabriel, plus 55 rushing and another touchdown. So add it all together, he had a huge game.
I'll go with Eric Gray for my player of the game. Eric Gray heard y'all. He heard everybody. Talking about Marcus Majors running back 1. Eric Gray is not a true running back 1. All those conversations, he balled out today. He was getting what he wanted. He's making it happen. He's good for a couple big runs a week, it seems like, at least. But he was on it today. I mean, over 10 yards a carry. That'll do.
How about the Marcus Major touchdown in the first quarter, where they line up in under the shotgun, pro set, no, not pro set, 2 tight ends and 2 backs, I formation. When does the last time we've seen Oklahoma do that?
Well, they made Mickey Joseph burn a timeout because they came. It was right.
Yep.
Marvin Mims, because it was the second quarter.
Yeah,
it was
they
the end zone in front of
bounds.
us.
Yeah.
Marvin Mims said it was out of bounds. They come out with Chris Murray and at fullback. Mickey Joseph says, no, we're doing this. Then they come back out, and like you said, Power O, Tawi Walker and at fullback. Ton of fun.
Bowling ball.
Yeah, and it should be noted. I know we shared this on the postgame wrap. But in the press box, you have a PA announcer who does a little, hey, that was a 5-yard pass by Dylan Gabriel, completed to whoever, blah, 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 for every single play. Standard operating procedure. On the Eric Gray touchdown that opened up the second half right after the Canic forced fumble, the in-stadium PA was like, and that's a 21-yard touchdown by Eric Gray. When he was crossing the 5-yard line, they didn't even wait to see if the safety made a play on Eric Gray to the goal line. He's like, no, this isn't happening. Nebraska's dead. This program is dead. Urban, please save it. That was the attitude in the press box from even the PA. So that OU made the in-stadium PA quit as well.
God bless these people in Nebraska. Their fans got up for this, and
team let them down.
Team let them down, which nothing new about that as of late. Texas Tech battling with NC State 20-7.
Down 20-7 at halftime.
That game's in Raleigh. Cut 'em a little slack for the They got that win over Houston, so they got that going.
Cowboys leading Arkansas Pine Bluff 49-7 at halftime.
Arkansas Pine Bluff.
UTSA is ahead of Texas 10-7.
These are all games that are final. By the time anybody they're like, why are you guys talking about this?
Well, and Tulane upsets K-State, the next opponent for the Sooners.
That was a shocker.
Best 3-win team in the country, Tulane. I bet OU fans are just rolling that bad boy over from last year.
Yeah, K-State took a little bit of the steam out of that. That was going to be a ranked matchup under the lights. Maybe some buzz, maybe a slim chance considering it's the Fox primetime game, but you thought maybe College Game Day's going to think about it, maybe, because it's a pretty thin slate next week.
Game Day's got to go to Kansas State.
There goes
It's got to go to KU Duke. Send Jay Billis as the special guest picker. Lean in.
There will be more opportunities for Norman later this year. Obviously, Bedlam and Baylor are both in Norman, but
I'm cracking up here because Houston is getting a taste of what life is like in the Big 12 Conference.
Yeah,
they got slaughtered by Kansas today.
Lost to Tech last week.
And Tech last week, exactly. They're 0-2 in Big 12 play.
So they're
not even in the damn league yet.
As we go to wrap up here at the press box, it's 8:10 p.m. This is all name game, obviously. So we're just burning the midnight oil here in Lincoln. I think who's gonna get a runza on his way back to the hotel? I can already feel him thinking about it. He's gonna go 2. You liar.
I had the double runza last night. I'm good.
The double runza. Hoover and I did not get enough Nebraska when we were in the College World Series for 2 full weeks, so we just had to drink it back in.
You did see Skip, though, today, though, and he did not give you a hard time.
Well, he did.
But not about our coverage.
Yeah. always fun to see Skipper. He's been all 3
Asked him why his camera was so small.
I've been all 3 OU football games so far as the Skipper. He's got a new contract. He's feeling good. He's feeling good right now. Last thing, as we start to wrap up, we'll look at K-State a tiny bit in just a second. But, today, Oklahoma looked really good. Obviously, their best game of the season so far, coming into Lincoln on the road, doing what they did. It might be their best game just anyway, removing the fact that it was on the road in a hostile environment, crushing this Nebraska team. Where is your opinion at for what this team can do today? That's an evolving thing week to week. You get new data, you reevaluate what you think they are. What's this team capable of doing? Because America is all on Oklahoma. I know you guys have surveyed Twitter a little bit, but the national perception of Oklahoma is about as high as it's been, certainly since Lincoln Riley left, at least.
I don't think there's anything to say about what this team's capable of beyond they can beat Kansas State. Simple as that. And I'm going to take you back to the Brent Venables press conference. He said this team hasn't done anything yet.
So it's too early for you to start saying this is
They
playoff.
haven't started
This is
conference
playoff
play.
team.
They had a good showing, not a great showing. They had a great showing today, but non-conference play just in general, I'd say they had a B plus, A minus performance in non-conference overall, all 3 games combined.
I think today,
And that's tough because the defense only allowed 8 points per game going into today, so
It's 10 points per game
grading
now.
harsh.
It's 30.
Yeah.
I think that today is more encouraging just because we finally got to get a taste of, okay, Jeff Levy's opened the playbook up a little bit. Brent Venables has opened the playbook up a little bit. You should have – exactly what Oklahoma did offensively is what they should have done against Nebraska. This is a terrible Nebraska defense. But it's been years since Oklahoma has just done what they're supposed to do in a lot of these games.
Yep.
So I think that while in the lens of what it should mean, it shouldn't mean a whole lot, I think that that's very important. That this is a team that is showing they can go out and they can beat the doors off of a Power 5 opponent that they should kick the crap out of. And that's what they did today. For the run game, like, again, we said this last week. Like, you run really well against Nebraska. That's a good sign because you didn't do it against Kent State. But ultimately, you want a cookie? Like, this is a terrible Nebraska defense.
Yep.
The K-State front's for real. If they do this against K-State next week, in command to – not only be in Arlington, be the favorite in Arlington, be a heavy favorite in Arlington, depending on what OSU does. OSU's looking pretty good to start the year. And then from there, you can start having those conversations.
Be a favorite to get to the playoff at that point. If they do this again next week, if they put this performance together next week against K-State, I think they're a playoff contender, a real legit playoff contender.
Yeah, that's what I was going to finish up with was just some, so we have a whole week to preview that Kansas State game. But looking ahead to that matchup, you're back home. Night game again. You imagine the vibes are going to be high if you just did what you did in Nebraska. I imagine the atmosphere is going to be pretty good. K-State took a little bit out of it, like I said, laying just a fat egg today against Tulane. Losing at home to Tulane. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Climbing in the boys. I made the joke earlier. They kind of feel like this year's Iowa State. Like the expectations are high. Thinking like they could be that kind of sneaky sleeper team to make some noise here down the stretch, and you lose at home to Tulane. What are you doing?
Well, Adrian Martinez just put one out there. He was emotionally with the Huskers today with that performance that he had in Manhattan.
That had to be it. I was just looking at the game. The final score was 17-10. Michael Pratt, remember him? Tulane quarterback. Completed 50% of his passes today. Got intercepted twice. Then goes down and leads his team on a game-winning touchdown drive. The K-State offense went for it on 4th down 5 times. They were 1 for 5 on 4th down. 4th and short, twice in the 3rd quarter, once in the 4th quarter. They got shut down at the line of scrimmage. I'm wondering what the Oklahoma defense is looking at when they see, or what they're seeing when they look at that.
Any last thoughts on K-State? Wrap up?
No, it'll be
Last
again,
thoughts on this game, I should say.
Yeah,
Early thoughts on K-State.
Again, that K-State front, for as bad as they played today, defensively it's for real. So that's what I want to see. If Oklahoma can do this offensively, and again, I know this is like has a negative connotation, but I think this Oklahoma team needs to be a pass to open up the run, and you can do that today, and they still shoot guys. The run-pass split was still ridiculous. I know that OU basically said, hey, don't worry about it. We're just going to tank this thing in the 4th quarter, but they still had almost like
54-30.
Yeah, 54-30 as far as snaps, run plays versus pass plays. Oklahoma can have a ton of success and shred a ton of teams passing early on in the 1st quarter, and then as people freak out, and as you get Theo Weiss involved, as you get Jalil Farouk involved, that makes that even more of a threat. Then that opens up the run game, and then Jeff Levy can be that guy that he wants to be, that run-first guy. I think that's totally viable, a totally viable path to a really explosive offense. I want to see it against a really good defensive front in K-State. And like you said, if they have a similar performance, then you're really cooking with something.
Deuce Vaughn's one of the hardest guys in the country to tackle. Sooners didn't do it last year. Remember that? Especially coming out of the backfield.
Yeah.
I remember Alex Grinch's comment was, believe it or not, guys, we do have a plan for covering the back out of the backfield. Because they didn't do it. They actually have a plan. They didn't follow it, whatever. He's a slippery dude. He's going to get a lot of yards today. 21 carries, 80 yards rushing. His first time, I think, in 9 games that he didn't go over 100. So I wonder how physical the offensive line is for Kansas State at this stage. If they're getting shut. That's their first Power 5 victory in 12 years.
Tulane.
Tulane. So what the?
Yikes, I didn't know.
Yeah, where did that come from?
That's
Yeah.
not good. That
Of course, they almost got one last year in Norman.
That they did. That Tulane team that was going to be feisty and, going to be a good G5 team that won 2
Lost
games.
9 straight.
What a wacky team.
That was a weird season.
Just not
As
good.
if 2020 wasn't stupid enough,
Yeah.
2021 comes along and says, watch this.
This
No.
OU team seems to be much more straightforward
I was
so
about to say,
far.
no wacky tomfoolery today. Just a good old-fashioned ass kicking.
Yep.
So that's it from Lincoln. We're wrapping up here. It was a good trip up here. We'll make the venture back. I enjoyed it. My first time covering a game up here. Ryan's first time covering a game up here. Hoover, your first time in at least
12 years.
double-digit
13 years.
09.
Yeah.
So,
09.
good to get up here. It was cool to see the rivalry. You can tell these fan bases like to play each other. It's one of those. It really is a unique rivalry in that regard. There is like a respect kind of we want to play. Texas is losing right now.
Texas
My God.
down 17-7.
My
Hey,
God.
Second quarter.
There was
Totally predictable, right, Sam Mace?
Yeah. There was a old school Big 8 conference shirt in the
Let's
OU
talk about the big
fan
Big 8
section.
flag.
Yes.
There was a Big 8 flag. As soon as we got out of the car this morning, the first person I walked by had a "Make the Big 8 Great Again" shirt. Like, there's a lot of nostalgia in this game.
This was fun.
It is a ton of fun, and again, like you kind of mentioned, Josh, one hell of a fan base out there for Nebraska. I just
It
feel
really is
I
too
feel
bad.
terrible for them. I feel
It
awful.
wasn't fun for the young lady in the row behind us in the press box.
Speaking
Nebraska,
of a great fan base.
Speaking of a great fan base, you guys should have seen the press box today. Nebraska retains the title as the chattiest media press box I've ever sat
It's that
in.
College World Series spilling over. Remember
Same
how-
thing.
That
That's
thing's like
right.
a sports bar.
Difference is they're all cheering for Nebraska in this game. They're like, come on,
Run,
go,
Casey,
go,
run.
just get it, go,
Tuck the ball,
like,
Casey.
You're just like turning around going, will you stop?
We had
Grow up, be professional.
We had less of a time at OU Texas when the actual food serving staff was in the aisle literally cheering.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
That's coming up. OU Texas is just a few weeks away. That's sneaking up. We're gonna get some Fletchers soon.
Dear God, get us on the first floor of the press box.
I forgot about that. We got some work to do before then. K-State at home, and then Fort Worth in 2 weeks. That's our next road trip for OU and TCU at what's the name of their city? Ammon G. Carter. I almost said Lupton. That's the baseball stadium. Ammon G. Carter in a couple weeks. But we got home next week. Back on home soil, the Sooners and Kansas State. It was fun getting up here to Lincoln. That's probably it for Nebraska for a while, unless baseball wants to make another crazy run.
That's all on you.
It's all on me. I'll eat
I'm not
a
coming back.
runza for you if we get there. There you have it. That's it. Thank you so much for watching, as always. We'll be back Wednesday with our Kansas State preview show, wrapping up, of course, the Brent Venables and Jeff Levy and Ted Roof press conferences, along with all the player avails throughout the week ahead, putting the finishing touches on this game as well, new AP poll, Sooners the NFL, all that good stuff, as per usual. AllSooners.com, just an insane amount of coverage from this game is there for you. The wrap-up, highlights, post-game press conferences, game stories, takeaways, I don't even know what else. A ton of other stuff. It's all there for you. AllSooners.com. There's no way you'll have not heard, talked about every angle of this game on AllSooners.com. So be sure to check us out. And we'll be here with you all week getting ready for the Sooners and Kansas State. So that's it for us from Lincoln. It was a good trip, good first road trip of the year. We got some more doozies coming up. They're kind of later.
We
but
only
Ames
got
and-
locked in this stadium. We didn't get, or we got locked out.
We got
didn't
locked
get
out of the
in.
stadium, not locked in.
We haven't been locked in yet.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
pretty
correct.
stupid. We didn't even bring that up. We shot the wrap, and then we got locked out. We couldn't get back in to get our stuff. We're probably locked in right now.
Yeah, we're the last people here.
Yeah.
We haven't
Again.
seen a soul. I saw some OU Daily kids poke out to get some soda like 20 minutes ago. That's the only other bodies I've seen besides these two guys in the entire, in 2 hours at
It's
least.
some adventure every week with us. Every time we go on the road,
It's never easy.
happens.
There is no such thing as textbook at all. So we'll keep the train rolling. Hopefully things go smooth in TCU in a couple weeks. That'll be our next time on the road. But yeah, there's some doozies down the road. Ames and Morgantown are just looming.
Can't wait to
on
see
the
what happens
horizon.
in Morgantown.
On the
You ever been locked
horizon.
in an airport?
Oh man, Morgantown, country roads.
I just
That
want
West
to.
Virginia
I just want to
team is
ride
bad.
the thing. I just want to ride the tram thing once.
All I know is West Virginia is really bad.
Yeah.
That's my early.
They won,
That's
like,
my early take.
69-7 today
Against what,
Nebraska.
They were playing
Towson
Towson
or whatever.
They already lost to Kansas at home. They're going to probably finish last in the Big 12.
Hey, losing to Kansas, that's quickly
It's a badge of
creeping
honor.
up into quality loss territory.
That's very true. The Jayhawks,
SEC.
the Jayhawks schedule.
SEC.
Not that there's going to completely trying to wrap up, but the Jayhawks schedule the next 3 weeks is not that bad. Like they could be 6-0 when they come in Norman. That's not out of the realm of possibility.
What a wild statement.
Can you imagine if that's true? They'd be ranked by then, obviously.
He's already coach of the year, and then he coached one Big 12 game.
Well, he's coached one.
One. That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
yeah,
He
yeah.
has coached one Big 12 game.
I can't remember who they play. They play Duke, right? 'Cause
Yeah,
you
they got
mentioned that.
Duke.
I think they played TCU, and then it's another Big 12 game that's not horrible. Like 6-0 is not crazy for Kansas when they come to Norman in mid-October, which is outrageous. That's the week after the OU Texas game.
What a wild world we live in.
Trap game.
It's upside down.
College football's drunk. Yeah, OU Texas is a trap game for Kansas coming to town.
OU Texas. Texas is the trap game before the eyes looking ahead to Kansas.
Yep.
That's Brent Venables style, like he's talking about the Nebraska game this week.
Big
There you
looking
have it.
spot, yeah.
That's it for us. We'll wrap up now. We'll get out of here. Thank you so much for watching, as always. My read went away. Thank you for listening and watching. Like I said, we'll be back Wednesday previewing the Kansas State game, wrapping up this one, all that good stuff. You can listen to that show on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. If you have an Amazon-able device, just say, Alexa, play the AllSooners podcast. It's also posted on our website, of course, allsooners.com. Click on the playlist on your phone, your tablet, or your computer, and you can watch the video versions of all the podcasts on Who's YouTube page, John Hoover Media. So that's it for us. From Lincoln, adios. For Ryan Chapman and John Hoover, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll catch you guys next time.